When I joined MasterCard, I was like employee number 16 or something like that in the UK.
What, MasterCard overall?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realise it was ever that small.
No,
like, obviously it was, but you know.
So now there are, I don't know, hundreds of people in London.
In this episode, we speak to Jeremy Nicholls. Jeremy is a payments legend, having worked at Visa, MasterCard and NatWest. He took Apple Pay live at Visa and was the person that decided that MasterCard should sponsor the Brit Awards.
Just always going to look to leave on good terms, because you never know when you're going to bump into those people. Those people are going to come into your life again.
What's the one thing you're really proud of?
I would say the launch of Apple Pay in Europe. I was on point to work with Apple, work with the guys in Europe, California and whatever, to help bring that proposition to market. It was one of the few times I think you see in financial services there being like a wow moment.
I've been looking forward to doing this because before I set this up, I'd not worked in payments or risk. Mm-hmm. And given your, and you're going to have to get used to compliments, given your credentials, which you have, it's actually just a pleasure to speak to people that have done what you've done and to first-hand hear your story. So I've been looking forward to this. So what's your job title? What's the company it's at? And what does that company do in a way that my mum would understand?
Okay, so my job title is Chief Executive / Managing Director. The company's real name is Alternative Payments Limited, so that's its formal name, but it trades under the name Judopay, which kind of abbreviates to judo. So we are a payment processor. So when you are when your mum is making a transaction online, then she's using a card, or maybe she's using like Apple Pay or something like that. And we are providing those services to the established the shops or whatever, or the retailers that she's kind of like buying stuff from, to process that payment. So we take those card details in, and we kind of like squirt them up the line to to the whichever kind of payment scheme or appropriate kind of like place that it kind of needs to go to, do that kind of like securely and very kind of quickly and reliably and so on, so that kind of transaction goes through. So it's a fairly kind of simple kind of business that we're in. We are a payment processor for businesses likes of. KFC is I guess it's kind of a signature client of ours. We have a number of other kind of great kind of brand names. We work with one of the Uber companies and so on. So private hire kind of space is quite big for us.
Isn't it amazing that there's these companies that if you weren't in payments, you just wouldn't know exist, and you just sort of take for granted that the payment happens? Yeah, love it. We're going to start with some questions, and okay. I love these questions. So for season 2, we've started doing these, and I just love hearing the different responses. So first up, if you could have any job in the world for one day, what would it be and why?
Do you know, I think I'd like to be Prime Minister.
Because it's only for one day.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can't imagine what it must be like to do that job. I mean, and it is amazing kind of as a responsibility that you kind of have. But I just think it'd be really kind of cool to actually to be, for one day, just to actually be involved in making some decisions and so on, and do stuff that actually kind of matters.
Yeah, and see. I think that job would be so interesting because you'd see what other driving forces would influence you. Yeah. Because we as people look at the premise and we're like, why did you do that? Yeah. And you assume that there's some other stuff going on. That is an excellent answer. Next up we have, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think I would say always kind of leave on good terms with someone, and actually, and so I mean, I've in my kind of career I worked in a number of places and so on, and I guess one of the early kind of bits of advice I had was so just always kind of look to leave on good terms, because you never know when you're going to bump into those people, or those people are going to come into your life again. So kind of I'm not the sort of person who's I'm not a arsey aggressive kind of person anyway. So I always kind of look to for the best in any kind of like situation. But I think that was probably something which I've borne in mind in terms of just kind of getting on with people and making sure that if you do leave a job or a company at some point, or you break up with, it could be a business partnership, and just kind of leave it on good terms. Don't let the emotional kind of like side of things kind of get in the way.
Yeah, it's a good lesson to learn early, because it's easy not to, right?
I know. And I've seen people throw their toys out the pram and just really kind of lose it, and it just makes things difficult, I think, for their career afterwards.
I agree. What's the one thing you're really proud of?
I would say the launch of Apple Pay in Europe. Okay, so I was working for Visa at the time, and was very fortunate, very lucky to actually kind of have the remit of heading up mobile in Europe. At the time when Apple were wanting to launch this secret kind of project and bring that to market. And whilst kind of like the vision, the kind of was very much on the Apple side. Essentially, Apple Pay wouldn't happen without the payment schemes, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and whatever, providing the kind of the essential kind of technology to make it work. So I was on point to work with Apple and to work with the guys in Europe, California, and whatever, to help bring that proposition to market. Essentially, kind of working with the banks, other kind of parties, just to get people on board and actually kind of see it through, to launch. So that is, I guess, a sort of a key career achievement, I think, because it was one of the few times I think you see in financial services there being like a wow moment, and when people use it, and they still kind of use it, and I think
it's enormous, by the way. Yeah, like to do that is just huge, and it's amazing for a ton of reasons, but. You can literally say to people, on your phone when you did this, I was involved in leading that.
Totally.
That's enormous. Love that. Last question. What's the most ridiculous thing you believed as a child?
That's a tricky one.
Shall I give you an example that we had recently?
Go.
Somebody said that they believed that if the wind changed and you'd pulled a face, it'd stay like it.
That's a goodie. I'm not sure that. I guess I kind of was brought up with level-headed parents and so on like that. So I didn't necessarily kind of have a ridiculous belief.
That's nice. They set you on the right course. So where was school? Were you academic? Because you've gone on to do amazing things, but it's not. You don't always start in that way. Like, were you an academic kid at school?
Not really. No. I think I was kind of like pretty kind of bright and so on like that. But actually, I wouldn't describe myself in any way as academic. I kind of was more interested in other things. It wasn't to say that I wasn't. I didn't kind of work reasonably kind of hard, and I didn't want to do good things at school. I did, but I just kind of there was life outside of school.
Yeah, nice.
So
where was school?
I moved around a couple of times, but my kind of secondary school was a place called Judd in Tunbridge. Yeah. So
did you move around because your parents work? Or
I mean, so I was kind of born in Worcestershire in a place called Redditch, which is a new town, and my dad then got a job over in Ireland. So he kind of he took that job and moved half the family. So myself, my sister, and my mum. We moved over to Ireland for a few years, and my older brothers, they because they were at school or had just left school, then they stayed here. But so I had some time in Dublin, then came back to Kent, and actually then that's when I kind of started at Judd. So I guess kind of three main schools.
Did you when you were at school? Did you have any semblance of what the future might hold job-wise, career-wise? Did you have any ambition in a specific area?
No, I mean, I think as a kid, I kind of wanted to be a jet fighter pilot.
Yeah, of course.
Or something like that, you know.
Exactly.
But, and then, it got to, doing sort of, doing O levels, A levels, things like that. So I'm old enough to do O levels. And kind of when I finished that, then I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't, it wasn't any sort of particular kind of job which, I had a kind of passion for. So, I decided to go to college to do a degree, and then which I did a degree in business, and just I guess kind of things then happened from that point onwards.
Is it funny how that things do just happen?
Yeah,
I wish there was a thing where we spent time with kids and said, like, don't worry too much now, because things will play out. Because as I understand it, your career's been in payments, but your early career was in marketing. Yeah. Right. So how did you go from business to marketing?
Well, that's right. So I, in doing my kind of, my business degree, then there was an option in specialising. So I did the kind of marketing option there, and I decided I wanted to have a career in advertising. That's what I wanted to do.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Wow,
so
okay.
When I left uni, then I went to try and find a career in advertising. It was quite tough to try and get into agencies and so on. So I didn't manage that, but I did manage to work for News International on the media side. So my thinking was, all right, well, if I can get in on the media side of things, and then I can then sort of work my way from media sales to media buying and
What was it about advertising? Because one of the things that you said is that it's nice that in payments you can make it real and you can feel it and it's there. What was it about advertising that drew you to it?
I think very much the kind of the tangible nature of stuff. Yeah. So I've always been interested in things that you use on an everyday basis, and so I think it was probably then just the being involved in an industry that was a consumer facing industry that was about bringing kind of stuff to market. And
you see it in magazines and you see it on the telly and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And I guess one of the things that was News International was an interesting kind of company, quite a tough and demanding company. It's one of those kind of sort of jobs that if you were successful, then you ate. If you weren't, you got fired. Yeah. And I think kind of like a grad kind of coming into things, then it was fairly kind of like tough sort of awakening to life. But hey, shit, that's what life is like.
How did you do well in that role?
Yeah, I did, and I mean this is at the time when the Times, which was the lead product, so it was like the Times, Sunday Times, and then Elle magazine as which is also kind of a venture. So the Times had I think a kind of circulation of like a couple of 100,000. It was quite small, at that point. Everyone wanted to get on the Sunday Times, and so and the Sunday Times magazine was like they were the kind of key properties they had. So, but still, you had to work pretty hard to actually to interest advertisers, and particularly kind of new advertisers, which is kind of part of my role, and get them in. So.
So you're straight into sales?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you've done a business degree, you've done marketing,
yeah.
I want to work in advertising, but then you're in sales.
Yeah.
And everybody's first job in sales is brutal, regardless, whether that's today or 10 years ago, 20, whatever. Did it knock you at all because you hadn't expected a job in sales, or did you like it and enjoy it?
I guess I kind of like saw it as being, okay, I'm doing this because, I have a career interest in getting into advertising. Yeah. So it was a starting point. Mm. And I mean, hey, Times newspaper group was, had got some kind of, cool titles and so on. And, there was a good vibe going there. I mean, it was tough. I mean, I can remember having one of my kind of like best days ever there in terms of sales, and sort of was like slamming an order down on my kind of ad manager's desk and, saying, hey, look at that. Yeah. And it was, okay, well, it pointed out like a little detail and so on. And it was like, okay, next. Kind of, and it was like, okay, so Yeah, that's it.
You're getting no praise for this.
No,
just
exactly.
Do your job.
It's your job. It's what you're meant to do. Go on and do more.
Isn't that a funny transition from like in education, where you're sort of, as long as you're anyway, you're praised for like just being there and doing what's expected. Then you get to work and you overachieve, and people are like, yeah, okay,
yeah, good. Let's go and do more of it.
Because you've obviously gone on to lead companies and everything else. Do you look back on when you were early at the Times and think about how you were treated and think that's how you don't want to treat new people? Or do you think I had it tough, so other people should have some semblance of toughness? Because I find this dynamic fascinating, because times have changed and people have changed.
Yeah, I think I don't sort of treat fools gladly. I have high expectations of people, and I think that stems from my kind of my early years career, where people, as I say, you can have your best ever, but that's just what's expected, and so just get on with it and so
do
on.
It again tomorrow.
So I think that probably did have. It did influence me to a degree in terms of, I just kind of I do have high expectations of my of my team and have done all the way kind of through various kind of employers and so on, to just do a great job again and again and again. It isn't to say that I don't. I mean, I would differ from that particular kind of manager, because I do give praise. I do, and I do absolutely kind of appreciate and recognise what people kind of do in their jobs, and so I'm quite different on that side. But I do expect people to actually achieve great things.
Isn't it wild how that one size fits all management approach just lasted for decades?
Yeah, no. Absolutely.
I'm glad it's changed. I'm genuinely glad it's changed. So you're in this sales job at the Times. So during that role, advertising was still the thing that you wanted to do. How did you transition? Did you end up working in advertising?
No, I didn't. So, along came a thing, called Big Bang, and which kind of again probably kind of dates me or whatever. But and there are all these kind of like new opportunities in the city and so on like that. And so I had a colleague of mine in the Times, actually kind of then he had moved to work for some futures broking company and was doing pretty well, and it was like money. So that's kind of
mid-20s at this point.
Oh yeah. Okay. And it was just like, so that was what and I was kind of drawn to that, and so I kind of got a job in the same company as him, and then kind of realised probably after a few weeks that, hey, this isn't me. And
because that old boss seems nice now compared to.
No, I mean, hey, in terms of kind of brutal, then this is even more brutal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because it was a situation that if it was pure commission. If you didn't earn commission, they paid you, but then you almost kind of had to pay it back once you actually did get commission and so on like that. And if you were late in the morning, you had to get your checkbook out and actually write a check for 20 quid or something. That was your fine. You were fined for all these behaviours and so on. So
that is amazing.
Yeah. So it was a fairly kind of interesting approach. It wasn't It wasn't necessarily, that kind of put me off it. It was just, it was an operation that was looking to, essentially kind of sell high risk products to investors who weren't necessarily as savvy as they kind of should be. And I just thought, hey, this isn't me. And it's great when the markets are going with you and you can actually sort of like say, hey, you've only been sort of like trading a couple of days or so on, and you already sort of doubled your money. But when it goes in reverse and so on, no, this isn't me. It's not what I want to do. I wanted to have a career in advertising, marketing, so I want to get back into that.
So how long did you stay there?
5 months.
Okay. That's a long time in a place like that.
Yeah.
So how did you get back into?
Well, so I kind of became aware of a role at. I went and joined the Prudential. Okay. And it was at a time when financial services marketing was just really kind of becoming a thing, and you had Midland Bank or HSBC now had actually just appointed their first kind of marketing director, and he'd come from a sort of FMCG background. The Peru had just appointed a guy who had previously been heading up, I think, Safeways, and so on. So they were looking to get marketing talent into the business, and so I was aware of an opening as a sort of like grad level kind of opening. Went and did that actually. They had a guy called Malcolm Hughes, who I say it was this guy who was sort of heading up marketing at that time. He'd come in from that background. I was just kind of interested in. I was interested in financial kind of like stuff anyway. So I kind of fell into that.
No real rule book at that point either, right? It's a bit greenfield. It's a bit. Did you feel as though when you went into that, despite being a grad, did you have a voice because it was greenfield?
Well, actually, it's interesting because I think the first two experiences I had in terms of being in a fairly kind of brutal environments where it was all about performance. Yeah. Then that had kind of shaped me kind of somewhat, and I think I was very much quite a driven person, quite ambitious, and I went up quite quickly through the ranks at the Peru. I think I was promoted every year or something like that.
So when you arrived, what was your job title there?
I don't know, just
whatever.
The marketing exec.
What was it
or
when you
something
left?
I was head of insurance for on that kind of head of consumer insurance. They called it head of personal lines, which means nothing to anyone. But anyway, but I mean, in terms of actually sort of car insurance, home insurance, travel insurance, whatever. Then I headed up those product lines.
So at that point, do you feel as though you know what your career's going to be? Do you think it's career rather than job by the time you leave the Peru?
Well, yeah. So I kind of, I was well into marketing, and so I'd lost my kind of attraction to advertising. I'm still into advertising and so on, but actually, I didn't want to have a career in advertising. I just wanted to develop my, my kind of marketing kind of career. Yeah. And so I was at the Peru for 7 years. All right. Okay. So quite a long stint. Yeah. I mean, particularly if you compare like now, and kind of young people now actually are sort of probably in 2 or 3 years max. So I was approached by Reuters to come and work on this new business information venture they had. Developing information products for the insurance industry.
How did it feel to be approached?
Well, pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm
by someone like Reuters, it's an amazing thing. How did that happen? Did they get an email address? Like, how did it?
I don't
was
know.
It just a headhunter or something?
So just approach and then so I was I guess you get that kind of 7 year itch anyway. So I was looking to maybe kind of move. Reuters is a world famous company, and it was kind of out of insurance to a degree and into like information technology. And so this is this is 94. Okay, so this is kind of at the dawn of the internet, which so Google wasn't a thing. All right, so essentially what the business was all about was providing online search capability to so anyone in the insurance business who took this product could actually key in search terms, and it would go and consult the databases that Reuters had, and which included maintaining kind of they had a sort of 80 or so kind of people doing cuttings and loading up cuttings from newspaper articles all left, right and centre into this database. Wow. So this huge database of information that you could actually, you had a sort of fairly kind of slick interface to actually kind of like to search that. So as I say, it's kind of Google-like, but on a much kind of smaller scale, which then got obviously kind of blown out the water when.
So you were responsible for marketing that product?
Yeah, so it was my kind of product to build, working with the various kind of like tech teams there to talk to the industry, go out and actually try and sell it to industry kind of players and so on, and so it was pretty cool, and I think I enjoyed being part of that kind of setup. They were quite a good employer, some good colleagues and people I was kind of working with and so on. So I was kind of doing that, and then my boss at the Peru had moved to become marketing director of NatWest Bank.
Okay.
And he was their first marketing director, really, in terms of the whole of the UK kind of bank level.
Yeah.
And he asked me to come and be his number 2 there.
Wow.
And it's one of those things you couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, hey, this is an even bigger opportunity. So I kind of went from being in a sort of a team of 2 or 3 in a business of 100 or so, to having a couple of hundred people in my team at NatWest.
Jeez,
and
what a jump that is!
Yeah,
you don't hear jumps that big.
No.
Like that is a big one. Were you intimidated by that jump, or did the boss help you navigate it well?
He didn't particularly help. I just have good terms with him. It was a strange one because he essentially, and it wasn't necessarily the easiest of kind of like roles to kind of move into because he'd moved into this position and then brought in people that he knew and trusted. Yeah. But essentially that the people that then became reports of mine were, some of them were previously kind of reports of his.
Gotcha. So they're seeing kind of, around you sort of thing.
Who is this person has been brought in that is now my kind of boss? So I guess you had, that was a difficult kind of situation. I did actually have a colleague that was on another part of the business that kind of brought in a similar way. The whole thing didn't, after 18 months or so, he, this guy lost his support, should we say, within the kind of bank. Banks are very political organisations, incredibly political organisations. He lost his support, and so he got, turfed out. The people he brought in kind of got turfed out, with the exception of me. That they decided that they liked me and wanted to keep me. So I guess I'd kind of, my whole approach isn't say come in and bang the table and it needs to be like this. Yeah. My whole approach has always been about right, so understand the situation. So talk to people, understand. Well, what do you, how does it work? What do you do?
Shouldn't be novel,
what are the kind of what are the challenges we've got? And then figure it out. All right, what do we want to do kind of differently, rather than actually sort of come in and be sort of, as I say, a table banger right from the the word go, which some people are.
Yeah, I think they still are. But I'd be interested to know if you agree with this. I think in between then and now, I think before then it was majority table banger, and it's transitioned into the minority table banger just because there's no utility in banging the table. Yeah. So it's people like you that thought about it at that time that probably advanced that, and you'd have probably found people in your career that were also like that, right? You probably moved away from the table bangers and try to find those like solution focused people that you teamed up with. I should imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, and for me, that's the. You find yourself in situations all the time, and you probably don't necessarily know a lot about it, but you figure it out, and you you work with people to understand what the whatever it is situation kind of challenges are, and you together figure out what the right thing to do is, and I think that's that kind of collaborative approach, and has always been part of what I'm about.
Well, it also worked because you were the only person that didn't go from.
Absolutely.
So it works. So it's gonna that validates that it's the right thing to do. Yeah. So so how long were you at NatWest?
I was there 5 years. So kind of so the kind of conversation was along the lines of, all right, you've been doing good stuff. We want you to stay. Yeah. And I said, well, okay, the only thing, and they initially wanted me to go into their insurance business. I had a fairly big insurance business, but I was done with insurance. I wasn't really interested in it. So I said, well, the only job I'd like to do, the only part of the bank I want to work in is cards. And for me, I was coming back to my kind of tangibility point. It was like the most FMCG of any kind of consumer financial services, because it was a thing you had in your you had in your hand, you had in your wallet, and so on, that you use on an everyday basis. It was just a fairly kind of like essential thing. So they created a role for me in their kind of consumer cards business. Initially, kind of just heading up their marketing communications, but then taking the product responsibilities and having the P&L responsibilities for product. So I was there for 5 years. I loved my job. Really? I had a great team of people, some really kind of smart people. It was like running a marathon every day for a week. You were drained at the end of it, weekend, but then you went again on Monday. It was a really exciting kind of job for me, and I absolutely. It was
at a time when the industry was changing a lot as well. Like cards were changing.
Well, actually, it was kind of one of the interesting things was, and if one reflects to kind of where things are today, I think we used to, a heavy user of cards was probably someone who made, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 transactions a month.
Really?
Okay, in a credit card sense. Debit cards were just coming and taking off and so on. So now we all make about 20 transactions a day on a card, or more. But it was just, it was very much kind of cards were in there, were establishing themselves, as products and so on. So, I guess, there were those sort of changes kind of, going on. But, there were some exciting things. We were doing some exciting stuff on data in terms of understanding from the transactional analysis and understanding the different types of customers we actually had and what would be the right marketing approaches for them.
Seems obvious now, but then it wouldn't have been.
Absolutely. And we kind of... we had also, this is now obviously life has gone digital, which is great. Then our means of communicating with people was like through the mail. Okay, so we had so statements was something that we decided was a marketing channel. So we invested in getting essentially kind of personalized messaging and coupons and things like that on the statement. Based on, so it was
captive audience, right?
It was it was I think we're doing some interesting kind of stuff there. And and I was there until Royal Bank of Scotland bought it. Okay. And that was, came as a quite a big surprise. I was with my team on a strategy, forward-looking kind of strategy offsite, and someone said, "Oh, Bank of Scotland has made a bid for us." And then Bank of Scotland got knocked out of the way by Royal Bank of Scotland, who then actually kind of came along and bought the bank. They had their version of me. They wanted me to work for their version of me. I said no. I've got other things to do. So I left at that point. But it was a job I loved. Yeah,
it sounds like you've got really fond memories of it.
Yeah, no.
So it's hard to find the next thing because you've got really high expectations. What was the next thing?
So the next thing was MasterCard.
Oh, there we go.
So at that time, then NatWest. RBS, as it kind of became, was the largest customer of MasterCard probably in Europe, actually, certainly in the UK. And so I had good relationships with MasterCard people. They asked me to go and head up the UK in a business franchise.
Amazing.
Yeah, which is cool because it was a great challenge at the time. And it feels weird to kind of like to say this now, but MasterCard had been losing share sort of like quarter on quarter. It wasn't in a great place. The brand was pretty weak. So MasterCard had there was a brand that was called Access, which was Britain's best loved financial services brand as it was then. It was a flexible friend. Boop, boop, Anyway, so it had the highest brand awareness, much higher than much higher than Visa at that time. But then MasterCard bought Access, killed Access, and then there was a program of establishing MasterCard as a brand. So you had, I guess, that challenge to actually kind of grow the brand and then grow the business and to put the thing on a growth footing. So I think when I joined MasterCard, I was like employee number 16 or something like that in the UK.
What, MasterCard overall?
Yeah,
in the UK.
Yeah. So
wow. I didn't realise it was ever that small.
No,
obviously it was, but you know.
And so now there are, I don't know, hundreds of people in London, and and so it's grown and developed.
Did it feel like a startup? Because you now know exactly what a startup feels like, but did it feel like one?
Not particularly, actually. It kind of it was. It had those sort of like startup-y type challenges, but it. At that time, payment schemes weren't particularly commercial entities. Yeah. And so, because I'm a very commercial person, that was something that I wanted to change. Yeah. All right. So, we had a shake-up of people. We hired some new talent. We kind of started growing the business, started winning business. We started investing in things like in cool advertising, marketing kind of programs. Yeah. The Brits came out of that time.
So were you involved in MasterCard sponsoring?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Love that. Yeah, that must have been their field, right? People at MasterCard must have been like, "What are you talking about?"
Well, it's kind of we kind of sold it on the basis of it's a key spend category. It's so important for people's kind of lives and so on. And I mean the other sponsorships, which isn't great sponsorships. The other sponsorships we were involved with were obviously kind of football. Yeah. So the World Cup was ours, the kind of like Champions League, things like that all came out of the work we were kind of doing together.
And you were able to say, I bought this money in and now I'm going to spend it because you'd had that commercial focus to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the whole at the time that there was like a different European setup that MasterCard globally kind of acquired, and I was very much aligned to the MasterCard global kind of way of thinking, and so there was a lot of kind of shake-up, a lot of kind of development. It became much more kind of commercial. We used to go from MasterCard used to measure its success then in terms of like how many cards were issued with its badge on. Through to when I left, when people it was okay. What is the volume of transactions actually kind of being processed, and what is the kind of the revenue, the commercial value of those? So
because an idle card doesn't mean anything.
No, exactly. I mean, you can, but that's I guess it's kind of interesting, kind of like the journey they then went on over that time. So that was a fascinating. Time to be part of them, and I have great, great relations, and
I'd say you do.
Yeah.
So how did you end up? When was Visa straight after that?
Yeah.
How did that get? How did MasterCard feel, or certain people at MasterCard when you did that, and how did it come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it was a bit awkward, shall we say? Okay, so perhaps best not to go into the full detail of that. But there were kind of some emerging differences of opinion on stuff.
That happens.
All right,
in life.
And I had, because I've been previously at NatWest heading up consumer cards, then I had pretty good relationships with Visa as well. Yep. So I knew people at Visa. In fact, actually, I used to, knock up against them all the time. You'd go to industry things and meet your counterparts and so on. Conversations happened with Visa. Yep. They jumped at the opportunity to bring me in, and I guess it's kind of like a new challenge and so on.
So how did you go from MasterCard's making more money and therefore we should sponsor the Brits and the Football World Cup, and that's a big marketing opportunity for us, and we shouldn't be looking at how many logos are on cards, we should be looking at how much people spend, to Apple Pay is now available through Visa? Because that's a jump. They're not, they are connected, but they're not.
Yeah. So actually it's interesting. In terms of arriving at Visa, then Visa was at an earlier point in its kind of development. It was kind of where MasterCard was 4 or 5 years, earlier. Very much like an association, quite arrogant as an organization, I kind of found. And whereas, what I'd managed to achieve at MasterCard was very much a kind of customer focus. We focus on what do our customers actually going to want, and how can we help them to achieve that? And essentially the customers being the banks, but then also the other kind of organizations like retailers, telcos, and so on, all have a key part to play. So there was then a kind of a bit of a revolution or a change in approach in terms of at Visa. Visa, is an organisation which I've got so much kind of time for, and there were some brilliant people that I managed to work with. I guess it was kind of one of the things that with the sort of advent of mobile telephony, even when I was at NatWest, we were thinking, what can we do with mobile? Can we put payments in mobile? And I guess lots of people were thinking about that. At MasterCard, one of the I can remember when contactless kind of came into being. I think it's sort of in 2005 or so. Then when MasterCard had their they developed this contactless technology. And you think, oh, wow, this is going to be big. It's 2005, okay? It didn't get to be big until, post-Olympics 2012.
Yeah. I remember my contactless card coming through the post.
Yeah, and now it's like every day. It's kind of how people actually pay for things. So it's kind of one of the lessons, I guess, in terms of payments, is that things sometimes take a long time to actually kind of evolve and develop. At the time when, that sort of contactless functionality, having essentially a radio signal communicating to a terminal. Yep. Well, okay, that can be on a card. I think actually some of the early things we did in mobile was actually kind of cut the sort of the chip out and put the antenna and so on, and just stick it on the back of a mobile kind of casing, and that was like a mobile transaction. Right? Yeah. But then there was a lot of interest from mobile companies, telcos and so on, in terms of getting and banks in terms of getting payment actually into mobile, and there are a number of kind of pilots, that took place. It was, I guess, the industry was expecting that at some point, this thing was going to happen, and so when did Apple launch the iPhone? 2007, 8, something like that? Yeah. I
think so.
All right. So once
it's coming.
There were all those advantages of mobile telephony, I guess, were exciting kind of things. So Visa, whilst in a commercial sense, wasn't the most commercially advanced organization. It was needing to, because MasterCard had stolen so much kind of business from them. It was needing that like a wake up in terms of its approach, which I was helpful to try and get them to kind of do things differently. But one of the things they were very good at was the actual, on the product side and the actual kind of technology side was a real kind of strength, and that is a real kind of capability they had. So Visa was more advanced than MasterCard in terms of innovation and its innovation agenda.
I'm sure that ebbs and flows though.
Yeah.
Right. There'll be times when, and also because of the scale, there'll be times when, this bit of MasterCard's better than this part of Visa, and in different areas.
100%. And I think then they're both great companies that have a very important kind of role to play, and they have been part of some great innovation. So I guess then when Apple kind of came along, then it's one of the things about kind of payments is that whilst you can have like individual kind of initiatives, the market just wants a uniform experience.
Yeah.
So a merchant doesn't want to be doing different things for this
Convenience
scheme and different
drives
thing for
adoption,
that,
right?
and so on. They just want, all right. So they want standardization, and so having so whilst they were fiercely competitive, Visa and MasterCard, they also collaborated in key initiatives that would help the market take forward. Yeah. So a key, one of the key areas of that obviously would be like things like fraud prevention and so on, that they work together on to actually kind of like to address things. But in terms of enabling Apple Pay, that was also something that I guess they have probably helped by the Apple being such a big, important kind of company in the world, having the clout to make stuff actually happen. But so they worked to do their own thing, and to make the best of it for their own brands, but also the kind of like the kind of the standardized approach and the whole kind of concept of something called network tokens, which makes Apple Pay work. That kind of involved the organizations kind of working together on a technology side.
I like the scale of this stuff is just enormous, right? Once this project was delivered, was that the end of your time at Visa?
So I mean, like, the I guess the kind of the time you had Visa was a European organization. That then was then acquired in a sense. It kind of like merged into the Visa Inc., the global entity, the public company. And so at that time there were a bunch of kind of organizational kind of changes. So they had, their team, doing various kind of things. So my position kind of left, got kind of reorganized out of Visa, and so I kind of left in 2015. But so it was great to be involved with Apple launch. We were also involved with the early development of Google Pay and so on. And initially we were having conversations with Samsung Pay in terms of trying to get that going as well. But so it was a I've been at Visa just under 10 years. Wow. So in a variety of kind of roles. So but I left then and kind of went into, I guess, portfolio world would be a description of it.
Right.
In terms of just doing a variety of different things.
Yeah. And then you did that, which is just a complete change of Visa, and then that led you to Judopay, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was working in an advisory kind of sense for a whole bunch of kind of people, some cool people from the likes of 118 Money, through to Yo-Yo Wallet. There's a great tech company called Yoti, which is doing some interesting kind of things.
They're integrating to be taken.
Yeah, I mean, so at the time, I just had some initial kind of advisory kind of work with them in terms of on financial kind of services and so on. The early days, but working with some cool startups,
must have been and
so and
different.
it was hugely different. But I loved it, absolutely loved it. And then I got approached by the chairman of Judo because they were looking for a new CEO to come and work there.
Love it.
Yeah,
and the rest they say is history.
Yeah, no, totally. It's been and I think I've had some brilliant jobs and some great kind of career experiences and some brilliant kind of benefits. I mean, it's cool to work for companies that then like sponsor these amazing kind of things, from the Olympics to the World Cup finals and all that kind of stuff. So you get together, like, benefit from that. But still, the best job I've had has been the time that I've been at Judo,
really?
in terms of running out. And I think because it was the first time I was a CEO. Mm-hmm. And
it's a thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I relish actually just having all the responsibility and calling the shots on various kind of things, and the buck stopping with me. Yeah, I absolutely kind of relish that. And I was, we were a great team of people, and still are a great team of people. Obviously, we've been people sort of like come and gone over the years, but I'm tremendously kind of proud of the team that I have. And now, obviously, it's now part of a larger entity. So we were acquired by Fabric, this Italian fintech, last year. So that's a strategic acquisition of them to get into the UK market and so on. And a very much kind of about the use of our kind of technology and what we kind of do, and the team of people that we had were all very attractive, to Fabric. So it's great that the company now has new opportunities, and those people that work in it, have new opportunities with substantial backing. Because one of the things, I guess, in terms of being a startup or a scale up, is you have those kind of existential concerns, shall we say, and always kind of like looking for funding and this and the other. When really what you want to do is just focus on, okay, how do I grow this kind of business, and how do I, how do we kind of develop the product, take the product forward, and so it's kind of, things are different being part of a group. But that existential kind of concern, that's all gone away now, and we now have a parent organisation that thinks the world of us and wants to invest and grow us and so on like that. So it's great to be part of that.
It's a career to be proud of, and one thing I always think of when we walk past your office in Barclays Rise is that everyone looks happy. And that's a really special thing, and that's just testament to the way that you're leading it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think, but it is important, isn't it? Because
really important.
You want to go to you want to go to work. You want to work with interesting kind of people you like, doing things you like in a way that that actually you feel kind of appreciated, rewarded, and so on. So I've never been a good one for kind of bullshit or anything like that. It's just, and I hate politics.
Yeah, same.
I mean, I mentioned earlier about kind of banks being political organisations. It's kind of, you just saw the kind of the Machiavellian kind of stuff that used to kind of take place there. Visa was also kind of a fairly political organisation as well. I was done. It wasn't me, politics. So we just have a straightforward, no bullshit, transparent kind of approach to things. Tell it like it is, and I take the approach of treating people as adults. I mentioned earlier about having kind of high expectations of people, which I do, but I also sort of have the approach of it's kind of output which matters. It's not so I don't want people just to be there, to be there. It's kind of, I want them to be doing great things, and they can, in a sense, if they're doing great things, they can do that from anywhere. So whilst I do miss the so we're still in the Rise kind of setup. And we used to have quite a large-ish office there, and everyone used to go there every day, pre-pandemic. And that was great. There was a real kind of buzz and dynamic there. Things are different now because we're now hybrid. My dev teams work, essentially kind of work from home. It doesn't have that same dynamic, but it still works. And there's still, when people do get together, then they have a good time. And I think actually kind of, if I look at the employee engagement and so on, it's still really high. And that's, I guess, is the important thing. So we've kind of, I think then it is a happy place, for people to actually kind of come to work. And as I say, I've had the pleasure of working with some great people, in the past, and I still have a great team now that do amazing things. And my kind of favourite sort of channel on our kind of on our sort of company Slack is our kind of values channel. Where people are just encouraged to kind of give shout outs to people, and nice. It's just great just to see it happen.
Celebrate each other,
and just the people just volunteering, and giving shout outs to their colleagues and so on. It's absolutely kind of amazing, and it just gives me a kick to actually be running that company.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's lovely. That has been amazing. Thanks very much.
Cool. Well, it's been, thanks for the opportunity to chat through. I think it's been, I think it's been an interesting time to have been in payments. If I think back to, e-commerce only became a thing in I
remember it. I was working in 2011, 2012. Was it really?
But if you think of the internet was like 95, 6.
Yeah.
We started kind of talking about this thing called e-commerce,
when the IT people then gave the reins to e-commerce specific people, that's about them. But
I mean, so I guess you've kind of seen it grow from nothing to being obviously sort of there's been some profound kind of change and the way we live our lives, good and bad. I mean, I recognise I used to have this sort of childish kind of thing about wanting to just get rid of cash. I just thought, well, what's the point? You don't need cash. You can actually live your life without using this kind of stuff, and which I have done for a number of years now. I do understand now. Yeah, everything has an impact, and so inclusivity is important, and you don't want to leave people behind. And I think we're now at a juncture where there are people who just absolutely kind of get digital, but a load of people who don't really kind of get it, and that which puts a brake on things to a degree. But I guess it's an important challenge because as a society, we want to actually kind of like move forward in a good positive way. I don't get a kick out of seeing shops sort of like shut down and and high street sort of like town centres just kind of devoid of life. That's not great.
Marketplaces have taken over everything.
So I kind of but I think then there's been there's been some brilliant things that happen, and I'm very kind of like proud of being a part of some major kind of changes. There's been I guess there are some consequences of things as well.
And that concludes another episode of Not What I Expected. I hope you loved that as much as I loved recording it. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, tell us how you think it could be better. Thanks, and see you again.